She never imagined that signing her name would cost her everything she thought she knew about love. But as Lily Harper watched Gabriel Cross walk away with the evidence that could destroy her, she realized some betrayals cut deeper than others. Love and lies, sometimes they're the same thing. Lily Harper's hands were stained with watercolor paint, just like every Tuesday afternoon at Jefferson Elementary. At 28, she had found her calling teaching art to children who saw magic in every brushstroke. Her small apartment might have secondhand furniture and a refrigerator that hummed too loudly, but her classroom walls were covered with masterpieces that would make Picasso jealous, at least in the eyes of 8-year-olds. "Miss Harper, why did you make the sky purple in your painting?" asked Emma, a precocious student with pigtails. "Because sometimes the most beautiful things happen when we break the rules," Lily replied, kneeling down to Emma's level. "Art isn't about perfection, sweetie, it's about feeling." As the last student left for the day, Lily began cleaning paintbrushes in the small sink, humming softly. Her modest teacher's salary barely covered rent and groceries, but she wouldn't trade this life for anything. Every day brought new wonder through children's eyes, and that was worth more than money. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She almost ignored it. Telemarketers were relentless these days. "Miss Harper, this is Jonathan Whitmore from Whitmore & Associates. I need to speak with you about an urgent inheritance matter." Lily nearly dropped her phone. "I think you have the wrong number. I don't have any relatives who—" "You are Lily Rose Harper, born March 15, 1997 at Metropolitan Hospital in Chicago." The middle name stopped her cold. Nobody knew her middle name. She never used it. Yes, that's me. But sir, I think there's been some mistake. I don't know anyone wealthy enough to leave me an inheritance. My adoptive parents died years ago, and they were wonderful people, but they certainly didn't have millions lying around." "Miss Harper, this concerns a substantial bequest from someone you may not have known personally. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? This really isn't something we can discuss over the phone." That night, Lily lay awake staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with possibilities. An inheritance? From whom? The only family she'd ever known were the Harpers, who had adopted her as a baby and loved her unconditionally until their deaths in a car accident 5 years ago. They had left her enough to pay for college and a small emergency fund, nothing more. Could it be from her biological parents? She'd never tried to find them, feeling like it would be a betrayal of the people who had raised her with such love and care. The next morning, Lily stood outside the gleaming glass tower that housed Whitmore & Associates, feeling like a fraud in her best dress, a simple black number she'd bought at a thrift store for her college graduation. Around her, people in expensive suits moved with purpose and confidence she'd never possessed. The receptionist looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "You're here for the Blackwood inheritance meeting?" "Yes, I'm Lily Harper." "ID, please." The woman's tone suggested she expected Lily to be lying about her identity. After scrutinizing her driver's license like it might be counterfeit, the receptionist pointed toward the elevator. "42nd floor. Mr. Whitmore is waiting." In the elevator, Lily caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. Her nervous face stared back, looking exactly like what she was, a small-town teacher completely out of her depth. When the elevator dinged at the 42nd floor, she took a deep breath and stepped into a world that felt alien. "Miss Harper." Jonathan Whitmore rose from behind a mahogany desk that probably cost more than her car. He was distinguished, gray-haired, with kind eyes that put her slightly at ease. "Please, sit down. I imagine this call was quite a shock." "Mr. Whitmore, I think there's been a mistake. I don't know anyone named Blackwood." He slid a folder across the desk. "Arthur Blackwood, tech mogul, fortune estimated at $3.2 billion. He passed away 2 weeks ago and named you as his sole heir." Lily stared at the photograph paperclipped to the file. An older man with kind eyes and silver hair, completely unfamiliar. "Sir, I've never seen this man in my life. Are you absolutely certain you have the right person? Maybe there's another Lily Harper somewhere. March 15th, 1997, Metropolitan Hospital, Chicago. Adopted by Robert and Margaret Harper when you were 6 months old. Graduated from State University with a degree in art education. Currently teaching at Jefferson Elementary. Whitmore recited the facts like he was reading from a file. It's definitely you, Miss Harper. Lily felt the blood drain from her face. How do you know all that about me? Because Mr. Blackwood spent considerable resources locating you. According to his instructions, you are to inherit his entire estate, including liquid assets totaling $2.3 billion, the Blackwood mansion and grounds, and controlling interest in Blackwood Industries. The numbers were so large they felt meaningless. Lily had never seen a bank account with more than 3 digits. The inheritance includes the Blackwood estate, a 50-acre property with a 12-bedroom mansion, along with all liquid assets and business holdings, Whitmore continued, seemingly unbothered by her confusion. There are, however, certain parties who question the validity of this bequest. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Lily could see the city sprawling below. Somewhere down there was her little classroom, her simple life that made sense. Up here, nothing made sense. What kind of parties? Business associates, distant relatives, people who stand to benefit if your claim is deemed fraudulent. Whitmore's voice carried a warning. The Blackwood Industries Board of Directors has already filed preliminary challenges. They're bringing in investigators, auditors, lawyers. They want to prove you somehow manipulated a dying man. Lily's stomach churned. But I didn't. I never even knew he existed. I believe you, but belief and legal proof are different things, which is why I've arranged for a consultant to help guide you through this process, someone who understands how these inheritance challenges work. As if summoned, there was a knock on the door. That would be him now. The door opened and Lily's breath caught. The man who entered was tall and lean, with dark hair that looked like he'd run his hands through it and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see everything. He wore a navy suit that fit him perfectly, and when he smiled, Lily felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. Miss Harper, this is Gabriel Cross. He specializes in inheritance protection. Gabriel stepped forward, extending his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Harper. When their hands touched, Lily felt an electric shock run up her arm. His grip was firm, warm, and lingered just a moment longer than professional. She found herself staring into those blue eyes, completely forgetting where she was. The pleasure is mine, she managed, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. Gabriel's smile widened, as if he could sense the effect he was having on her. I know this must be overwhelming, but I want you to know that you're not alone in this. I'll be with you every step of the way. Something about the way he said it made Lily's pulse quicken. Professional reassurance shouldn't feel this intimate, should it? Mr. Cross comes highly recommended, Whitmore continued, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. He'll be working closely with you over the coming weeks to ensure your interests are protected. Mr. Cross comes highly recommended, Whitmore continued, as Gabriel took the seat beside Lily. He'll be working closely with you over the coming weeks to ensure your interests are protected. Gabriel's presence filled the room in a way that made Lily acutely aware of her heartbeat. The challenges against you are going to be aggressive, he said, his voice carrying a slight rasp that made her skin tingle. These people play for keeps. But don't worry, I won't let them intimidate you. As if on cue, Whitmore's secretary buzzed in. Sir, Marcus Sterling from Sterling, Blackwood & Associates is on line 1. He says it's urgent regarding the Harper matter. Whitmore's expression darkened. Speak of the devil. He picked up the phone. Sterling, what can I do for you? Even from across the desk, Lily could hear the aggressive tone of the man on the other end, though she couldn't make out words. I see. Well, you're welcome to present your evidence to the probate court like everyone else, Whitmore said coolly. Miss Harper has every right to her inheritance. Yes, I'm sure you'll be thorough. He hung up with more force than necessary. Let me guess, Gabriel said. They're claiming fraud, manipulation, forged documents. All of the above. Plus, they're suggesting she may have been involved in some kind of long-term scam. Whitmore turned to Lily. They're going to tear apart your entire life looking for connections to Arthur. Every job you've held, every place you've lived, every relationship you've had. Lily felt the room spinning. This is insane. I teach finger painting to second graders. Innocent people get destroyed by inheritance disputes every day, Gabriel said gently. But that's not going to happen to you, I promise. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting, but something in his eyes made Lily wonder if there was more to Gabriel Cross than met the eye. After the meeting, Gabriel offered to drive Lily to see the Blackwood estate. As they walked to the parking garage, she snuck glances at him, still trying to process the morning's revelations. "So you specialize in inheritance protection?" she asked as he led her to a sleek black sedan. "Among other things." Gabriel opened the passenger door for her, a gesture that seemed natural rather than calculated. "I've seen what happens when people get caught unprepared in these situations. It's not pretty." As they drove through the city toward the estate, Lily found herself studying his profile. Strong jaw, the kind of cheekbones that belong to magazines, and those eyes that seemed to hold secrets. There was something about him that made her feel both safe and nervous at the same time. "Can I ask you something?" she said as they hit the highway. "Shoot." "Do you believe me about never knowing Arthur Blackwood?" Gabriel was quiet for a moment, his hands tightening almost imperceptibly on the steering wheel. "Yes," he said finally. "Your shock in that office was genuine. Either you're the best actress I've ever met, or you're telling the truth." "I'm a terrible actress. Ask any of my students. I can't even pretend to be angry when they finger paint the walls." He laughed, and the sound sent warmth through her chest. "Good to know. What made you want to teach?" "The honesty," Lily said without hesitation. "Kids don't pretend to be something they're not. They don't lie about their feelings or hide behind facades. When a 5-year-old loves you, you know it's real." Gabriel glanced at her, something unreadable flickering across his features. That must be nice, having that kind of certainty. "What about you? What made you choose inheritance protection?" "I like helping people fight for what's rightfully theirs," he said, but there was something in his tone that made Lily think there was more to the story. The Blackwood estate appeared around a bend in the road like something from a fairy tale. Wrought iron gates opened to reveal a tree-lined drive that stretched for what felt like miles, leading to a mansion that belonged in a movie. "This is supposed to be mine?" Lily whispered as Gabriel parked in the circular drive. "According to Arthur's will, yes." They sat in the car for a moment, both staring at the imposing structure. Lily felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all, but Gabriel's presence beside her was unexpectedly comforting. "I don't belong here," she said quietly. Gabriel turned to look at her, his expression unexpectedly soft. "Maybe Arthur thought you did. Maybe he saw something in you that you don't see in yourself." The way he said it, gentle and sincere, made Lily's heart skip. She found herself wondering what it would be like to be seen that way by Gabriel, not as an inheritance case, but as a woman worth believing in. The mansion's interior was even more overwhelming than its exterior. Mrs. Morrison, the housekeeper, greeted them at the front door with a mixture of warmth and sadness. "Miss Harper, you look just like your father," she said, then caught herself. "I mean, like Mr. Arthur. He would have been so happy to finally meet you." Lily stopped walking. "What do you mean finally?" Mrs. Morrison's eyes widened as if she'd said something she shouldn't have. "Oh, nothing, dear. Just, he was a kind man who would have loved having family." But Gabriel caught the slip too, and Lily saw him make a mental note. Something cold settled in her stomach. The housekeeper knew something she wasn't saying. As Mrs. Morrison led them through rooms filled with priceless art and antiques, Lily noticed Gabriel was paying more attention to details than to the tour. He examined photographs on the mantel, opened desk drawers when he thought no one was looking, and asked seemingly casual questions about Arthur's habits and recent activities. "Gabriel," Lily said, when Mrs. Morrison stepped out to prepare tea, "is there something you're looking for?" He straightened from where he'd been examining a collection of paperwork on Arthur's desk. For just a moment, she caught something guilty in his expression. "Just being thorough. In cases like this, the more we know about Arthur's motivations, the better we can defend your inheritance." It was a reasonable explanation, but something about his tone felt off, like he was reciting lines he'd prepared. The Gabriel who had made her laugh in the car seemed to have disappeared, replaced by someone more calculating. "Gabriel, can I trust you?" The question seemed to hit him like a physical blow. He stepped closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. "Lily," he said, using her first name for the first time, "I give you my word that I will not let anyone hurt you." It wasn't exactly an answer to her question, but the sincerity in his voice made her want to believe him. When he looked at her like that, with those intense blue eyes focused entirely on her, rational thought became difficult. "Okay," she whispered. They were standing very close now, and Lily felt the air between them charged with possibility. Gabriel's gaze dropped to her lips for just a moment before he stepped back, as if remembering himself. "We should continue the tour," he said, his voice slightly rough. But as they moved through the mansion, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that Gabriel Cross was hiding something important. The way he'd searched Arthur's desk, the practiced efficiency with which he'd examined the photographs, it felt less like inheritance protection and more like investigation. And if Gabriel was investigating her, what exactly was he looking for? Over the following week, Gabriel and Lily spent every day together, ostensibly reviewing Arthur's business affairs and preparing for the inheritance challenge. But Lily found herself looking forward to their meetings for reasons that had nothing to do with legal protection. Gabriel was unlike any man she'd ever known. He was sophisticated but not condescending, confident without being arrogant. When he smiled at her, really smiled, not the professional version, her heart did things that should probably require medical attention. "Tell me about yourself," she said one afternoon as they sat in Arthur's library, supposedly reviewing financial documents. "I mean, the real you, not the inheritance consultant version." Gabriel looked up from the papers spread across the mahogany table, candlelight from the antique chandelier casting shadows across his face. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Where did you grow up? What made you choose this work? Have you ever been married? What's your biggest fear? What makes you laugh?" Something flickered across his face at the rapid-fire questions. "Slow down there, counselor. That's a lot of territory to cover." "We have time," Lily said softly, moving closer to him on the leather sofa. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes studying her face. "I grew up in foster care. Bounced around from family to family until I aged out at 18. Never found the right person to marry, I guess. Always seemed to be moving towards something I couldn't quite name. What would the right person be like?" He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Honest," he said finally. "Kind. Someone who sees beauty in simple things. Someone who paints purple skies, because beauty doesn't follow rules." Lily's breath caught. He remembered her conversation with Emma from that first day in her classroom. "Gabriel," she started, but her words were interrupted by his phone ringing. The spell broke instantly. Gabriel's expression shifted, becoming guarded as he glanced at the caller ID. "I have to take this," he said, stepping into the hallway. Through the cracked door, Lily heard fragments of his conversation, his voice lower and more tense than usual. "Haven't found anything concrete yet. She's not what we expected. Needs more time. I know what I'm doing." When he returned, his demeanor had shifted completely. The warmth was still there, but underneath it was tension that made her stomach clench with unease. "Everything okay?" she asked, studying his face. "Fine. Just other clients, other cases." But he wouldn't quite meet her eyes, and Lily noticed his hands were slightly trembling as he gathered the papers. "Gabriel, look at me." When he did, she saw something that looked almost like guilt. Who was on the phone? Nobody important, just business. But the way he said it, too quickly, too defensively, made Lily's journalist instincts prickle with suspicion. That night, alone in her apartment, Lily couldn't stop thinking about Gabriel's phone call. The way his voice had changed, become more guarded. The way he'd avoided her gaze afterward. The way he'd said, "She's not what we expected," as if he'd been reporting on her to someone. She opened her laptop and did something she probably should have done from the beginning. She researched Gabriel Cross. What she found was puzzling. There were scattered mentions of a private investigator by that name, but no website, no business registration she could find, no substantial online presence. For someone who supposedly specialized in inheritance protection, he seemed remarkably invisible in the digital world. The few references she did find were strange. Missing persons cases, background checks, investigation work. Nothing about inheritance law or estate protection. In fact, the Gabriel Cross she found online seemed to specialize in finding people who didn't want to be found. Meanwhile, across town, Gabriel sat in his sparse apartment, staring at a file folder he'd hoped never to open again. Inside were photos of Lily taken with a telephoto lens over the past weeks. Lily teaching her class, Lily grocery shopping, Lily laughing with friends at a coffee shop, all taken before he'd officially met her. At the bottom of the pile was a check for $50,000, his retainer from Sterling, Blackwood and Associates. The memo line read, "Harper Investigation, Phase 1. His phone buzzed with a text message. "Progress report needed. Client growing impatient. Evidence of prior contact with Blackwood must be found or created. S." Gabriel typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on, "Still investigating. Need more time." The truth was, after a week of being around Lily, Gabriel was starting to believe she was exactly what she appeared to be, a genuinely kind teacher who had somehow inherited a fortune from a man she'd never met. Every instinct he'd developed in 10 years of investigating fraud cases told him she was innocent. But innocent of what, exactly? The more time he spent with Lily, the more he realized Sterling and his clients had hired him under false pretenses. They claimed to want evidence of fraud, but their instructions were becoming increasingly aggressive. They wanted him to create evidence, not find it. Gabriel pulled out another folder, one Sterling didn't know about. This one contained his only investigation into Arthur Blackwood's background. Birth certificates, medical records, business associates, personal correspondence. And what he'd found was starting to paint a very different picture than the one Sterling had presented. Arthur Blackwood hadn't been a senile old man easily manipulated by a pretty face. He'd been sharp until the end, methodical in his business dealings, and, most importantly, he'd been searching for someone for years, someone specific. Gabriel's phone rang. Sterling again. "Cross, we need to meet, tomorrow. The clients are getting nervous about the timeline." "What timeline?" "The probate hearing is in 2 weeks. If we don't have evidence by then, they'll go with Plan B." "What's Plan B?" The line went quiet for a moment. "Let's just say it would be unfortunate if Miss Harper had an accident before the hearing. Young women living alone can be so vulnerable to random crime." The threat was clear. Gabriel's blood ran cold. "That's not what I signed up for." "You signed up to discredit Lily Harper by any means necessary. How that gets accomplished is up to you, but it will get accomplished, Cross, one way or another." The next morning brought unwelcome visitors to the Blackwood mansion. Lily was in the garden with Gabriel, showing him Arthur's prized rose collection, when Mrs. Morrison hurried out to announce that lawyers from Sterling, Blackwood and Associates had arrived and were demanding access to the property. "They can't just barge in here," Lily protested, but Gabriel's expression had gone dark in a way that made her pulse quicken with anxiety. "Actually, they probably can, if they've got a court order." Sure enough, Marcus Sterling himself stood in the foyer with 2 associates and a briefcase full of legal documents. He was a man in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of smile that never reached his eyes, the smile of a shark circling wounded prey. Miss Harper, Sterling said with false politeness that made Lily's skin crawl. I'm sorry to intrude, but we have a warrant to search the premises for evidence relevant to the inheritance dispute. Evidence of what? Lily demanded, her teacher's voice coming out stronger than she felt. Communication between you and Arthur Blackwood prior to his death, financial records, documentation of any relationship you may have had with the deceased, anything that might illuminate the true nature of your connection to Mr. Blackwood. Gabriel stepped forward, and Lily noticed his whole body had gone tense. I'll need to see that warrant. Sterling's eyes narrowed as he looked at Gabriel, and something passed between the two men, a look of recognition that made Lily's stomach clench with dread. Ah, yes, Mr. Cross, your reputation precedes you. Sterling's smile was sharp as broken glass. I trust you're being thorough in your consultation with Miss Harper. Always, Gabriel replied, but Lily caught the muscle ticking in his jaw and the way his hands had clenched into fists. Excellent. I'm sure your final report will be most illuminating. As Sterling's team spread through the mansion like locusts, Gabriel pulled Lily aside into a small sitting room. I need you to stay calm, he said quietly, his hands settling on her shoulders in a way that should have been comforting, but somehow felt desperate. Whatever they're looking for, let them look. Getting defensive will only make you seem guilty. But I am not guilty of anything. I know that, but they don't. Gabriel's eyes were intense, almost pleading. Trust me, okay? I won't let them railroad you. Gabriel, how does Marcus Sterling know you? Why did he look at you like that? For just a moment, Gabriel's mask slipped, and Lily saw something that looked like panic flash across his features. He's probably heard of my work. Inheritance protection is a small field. But even as he said it, Lily could tell it wasn't the whole truth. There was something Gabriel wasn't telling her, something important that would explain the tension between him and Sterling, the way they'd looked at each other like old adversaries. Looking into his eyes, Lily wanted to trust him, but doubt was creeping in like poison, making her question everything she thought she knew about the man she was falling in love with. Gabriel, are you working for me or against me? The question hung in the air between them, and Gabriel's hesitation before answering told Lily everything she needed to know. I'm working for you, he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. Then why do I feel like I'm being investigated instead of protected? Before Gabriel could answer, Sterling appeared in the doorway, holding a folder that made Gabriel go pale. Miss Harper, we found some very interesting documents in Mr. Blackwood's personal safe, documents that suggest this inheritance may not be as straightforward as you've claimed. As Sterling opened the folder with theatrical precision, Lily realized that her simple life as a teacher was about to become much more complicated, and Gabriel, the man she'd begun to trust with her heart, might be the one person she couldn't trust at all. Everything unraveled on a rainy Thursday morning when Lily arrived at the mansion earlier than expected. She had her own key now, and Gabriel wasn't supposed to meet her for another hour. She wanted to spend some quiet time in Arthur's study trying to understand the man who had changed her life. But Gabriel was already there, and he wasn't alone. Through the cracked study door, Lily heard voices, Gabriel's and another man's. She started to call out a greeting, but stopped when she heard her own name. The Harper girl is becoming a problem, the stranger was saying. She's asking too many questions, getting too comfortable. We need to move faster. I told you, I need more time, Gabriel replied. If we rush this, she'll get suspicious. She's already suspicious. Sterling says she's been doing internet searches on you. Lily's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall, straining to hear more. Look, Richardson, I know what I'm doing. Give me another week and I'll have everything you need to prove fraud. A week? Gabriel, we're paying you $200,000 to destroy this girl's claim. Either you plant the evidence or we find someone who will. The world tilted sideways. Lily grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. I don't plant evidence, Gabriel said firmly. I find real evidence or there's no case. Then find it, create it. I don't care how you do it, but that inheritance doesn't belong to some nobody teacher. The Blackwood fortune stays in the family where it belongs. Lily backed away from the door on unsteady legs, her heart pounding so loud she was sure they would hear it. Gabriel, her Gabriel, the man she was falling in love with, was being paid to destroy her. She made it to the front entrance before her legs gave out. Sitting on the marble steps in the rain, she finally understood why Gabriel had seemed too good to be true. Because he was. When Gabriel found her 20 minutes later, soaked and shivering on the front steps, his face went white. "Lily, what are you doing out here? You're going to catch pneumonia." She looked up at him, this beautiful man who had made her believe in fairy tales, and felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. $200,000, she said quietly. "What?" "That's what they're paying you to destroy me. $200,000. Her voice was eerily calm, like she was discussing the weather. "I have to admit, that's more than I make in 5 years of teaching. I can see why it would be tempting." "Lily, let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been lying to me from the moment we met? That every kind word, every gentle touch, every moment I thought we were connecting was just you doing your job?" Gabriel knelt in front of her, rain streaming down his face. "It's not like that. Yes, I was hired to investigate you, but what? But you decided to seduce me first to make it more fun? No, Lily, please, just listen to me for 1 minute." She stood up abruptly, backing away from him. "Listen to you lie some more? I don't think so." "I never lied about my feelings for you. That was real. That is real." Lily laughed, but it was a broken sound. "Your feelings? Gabriel, you were paid to have feelings for me. This is literally your job." "It stopped being a job the moment I met you." "Stop." She held up her hand. "Just stop. I can't listen to any more lies." Gabriel reached for her, but she flinched away from his touch. "Don't. Please don't touch me. I can't bear it." The raw pain in her voice made Gabriel's chest feel like it was caving in. "Lily, if you'll just let me explain the whole situation." "The whole situation? You mean how you've been manipulating me for weeks? How you made me believe that someone could actually care about me for who I am, not what I might be worth?" Gabriel watched helplessly as the woman he loved looked at him like he was a stranger. Worse, like he was the enemy. "I do care about you, more than I've ever cared about anyone." Convenient timing for that realization, right when you're caught. "I was going to tell you. I was trying to find a way to what? Break it to me gently that you've been gathering evidence to prove I'm a fraud, that everything between us has been a lie?" Gabriel ran his hands through his wet hair, desperation making his voice rough. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was supposed to investigate you, find whatever evidence they wanted, and walk away. But then I met you, and you were nothing like what I expected." "What did you expect? Some manipulative gold digger who had conned a dying old man? Instead, I found a woman who was genuinely confused about why someone would leave her a fortune. A woman who cared more about helping children than having money. A woman who made me want to be better than I am." Lily wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. "And yet you kept lying to me. Because I was trying to protect you. If I had told Sterling and Richardson that you were innocent, they would have just hired someone else. Someone who might not care about protecting you." "Protecting me? Gabriel, you are the threat I need protection from." The words hit Gabriel like a physical blow. He took a step back, seeing clearly for the first time how this looked from her perspective. "You're right," he said quietly. "You're absolutely right. I am the threat. And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Lily." She turned away from him, heading toward her car. "Where are you going?" "Away from you. Away from all of this." "Lily, please, don't leave like this." She paused at her car door, not turning around. "Give me one good reason why I should trust anything you say ever again." Gabriel opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer, no good reason. He had betrayed her trust in the most fundamental way possible. Lily got in her car and drove away, leaving Gabriel standing alone in the rain, watching his heart disappear around the bend. For 3 days, Lily didn't leave her apartment. She called in sick to work, ignored her phone, and survived on cereal and ice cream. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Gabriel's face. The way he'd looked at her, touched her, made her believe she was something special. It had all been a performance. Her doorbell rang on the 4th morning. Through the peephole, she saw Mrs. Morrison standing in the hallway, looking worried. "Miss Harper? Dear, I know you're in there. I've been calling for days." Reluctantly, Lily opened the door. Mrs. Morrison took one look at her, unwashed hair, pajamas, red-rimmed eyes, and pushed past her into the apartment. "Oh, honey, what's happened?" The kindness in the older woman's voice broke something loose in Lily's chest. She found herself telling Mrs. Morrison everything about Gabriel, about the investigation, about how stupid she'd been to believe someone like him could actually care about someone like her. "That bastard," Mrs. Morrison said with surprising vehemence. "I knew something was off about him. Too smooth, too perfect. Real men have rough edges." "I thought I was so smart, so cautious, but I fell for it completely." Mrs. Morrison made tea and settled beside Lily on the couch. "Sweetheart, falling in love doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human." "I wasn't in love. I was in love with a lie." "Maybe. Or maybe the man who made you feel cherished was real, even if everything else was fake." Lily shook her head. "It doesn't matter now. I'm giving up the inheritance." Mrs. Morrison nearly dropped her teacup. "You're what?" "I can't fight this. I don't have the energy or the resources. If Gabriel was willing to betray me for money, imagine what these lawyers will do. I just want my old life back." That evening, Lily's decision was interrupted by an urgent phone call from Jonathan Whitmore. "Lily, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for days." "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore. I've decided to renounce my claim to the inheritance. I'll sign whatever papers you need." There was a long pause. "Lily, we need to meet, tonight. There are things about this situation that you don't understand." "Like what?" "Like the fact that Arthur Blackwood was your father." The phone slipped from Lily's hand, clattering to the floor. She stared at it for a long moment before picking it up. "What did you say?" "I have DNA results, birth records, documents that Arthur had gathered over years of searching for you. Lily, your biological mother was Sarah Mitchell. She had an affair with Arthur when they were both young. When she got pregnant, Arthur's mother, your grandmother, convinced Sarah to give you up for adoption and never tell Arthur." Lily sank into her chair, the room spinning around her. "Arthur only learned about you 5 years ago when his mother confessed on her deathbed. He'd been looking for you ever since. He died 2 weeks before he was going to make contact." I can't." "Lily, you're not some random stranger who inherited a fortune. You're Arthur's daughter. This is your birthright." Through her shock, another realization was dawning. Does Gabriel know this? Whitmore was quiet for a moment. "I don't know what Gabriel knows. But Lily, there's more. The people who hired Gabriel, they're not actually representing any legitimate claim to Arthur's estate. They're a group of executives from Arthur's company who want to split the assets among themselves. If they can prove you're a fraud, they can contest the will and divide the company. So Gabriel is working for criminals. It appears so, which is why you need protection, real protection. These people have already tried to bribe investigators and plant false evidence. If that doesn't work," he didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm scared. Come to my office, tonight. We'll figure this out together." The DNA results were spread across Whitmore's desk like pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. 99.7% probability of paternity. Arthur Blackwood was her father. "He kept everything," Whitmore said, showing her folder after folder. School photos, newspaper clippings about your art awards, even a report card from 3rd grade. He hired investigators to follow you from a distance, just to know you were safe and happy. Lily studied a photo of herself at her college graduation. In the margin, someone had written in careful script, "So proud, wish I could tell her." "He wanted to be part of your life," she whispered, "more than anything. But he was also terrified of disrupting the happiness you'd found with your adoptive family. He planned to approach you slowly, maybe start with anonymous donations to your school, then gradually reveal himself. But he ran out of time." Yes, but Lily, in his final weeks, all he talked about was you, about how he wanted to make sure you were taken care of, how he wanted his wealth to mean something good in the world. He knew you would use it wisely. Lily stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Gabriel was probably filing his report, collecting his money, moving on to the next case. The thought still hurt, but underneath the pain was something new: anger. "Mr. Whitmore, what exactly are these executives planning to do with Arthur's company if they succeed?" "Sell it in pieces. The technology patents alone are worth billions. They'll make a fortune and destroy everything Arthur built. And the employees? Thousands of layoffs. Arthur's charitable foundations would be dissolved. His environmental initiatives canceled." Lily turned back to face him. "How many people are we talking about? Directly, about 15,000 employees worldwide. Indirectly, Arthur's foundations provide education funding for over 100,000 children annually." The number hit Lily like a slap. 100,000 children who needed art supplies, books, teachers like her. They're going to destroy all of that for money? Yes. Lily sat back down, her mind racing. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something other than confusion and hurt. She felt purpose. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting Arthur's legacy and the thousands of people who depended on it. What do we need to do to stop them? "We need to prove that their case is based on fabricated evidence," Whitmore explained, "and we need to expose Gabriel's role in their scheme before they can use whatever information he's gathered." "What about Gabriel? Will he be in legal trouble?" Whitmore studied her face carefully. "Do you care?" The question hung in the air. Did she care if Gabriel faced consequences for betraying her? 3 days ago, she would have said no. But now, knowing the full scope of what was at stake, she found her feelings more complicated. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me wants him to pay for what he did, but part of me still... God, I'm pathetic." "You're not pathetic. You're human. And Lily, there's something else you should know about Gabriel Cross." He slid another folder across the desk. "I had him investigated after you told me about the conversation you overheard. Gabriel has never worked a case like this before. His specialty is actually finding missing persons and reuniting families. In 10 years, he's never been involved in anything fraudulent." Lily stared at Gabriel's file. Case after case of helping people find lost relatives, locate birth parents, solve decades-old family mysteries. So why would he take a case like this? According to his bank records, he was 3 months behind on rent, had maxed out credit cards, and was facing eviction. They offered him enough money to solve all his problems. So he sold out for money? Maybe. Or maybe he took the case planning to go through the motions, then found himself in over his head when he met you. Lily closed the file. It didn't matter why Gabriel had taken the case. What mattered was stopping Sterling and Richardson from destroying her father's legacy. "What do you need me to do?" "We're going to set a trap, and you're going to be the bait." "Explain." "Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Gabriel. You're going to tell him you want to see him, that you're ready to listen to his explanation. When he comes to meet you, we'll be recording everything." "You want me to spy on the man who was spying on me?" "I want you to give him a chance to do the right thing. If Gabriel truly cares about you the way he claims, this is his opportunity to prove it. He can either help us expose Sterling and Richardson, or he can continue working for them." Lily took a deep breath, steeling herself for what might be the most important conversation of her life. She was no longer the confused, overwhelmed teacher who had walked into Whitmore's office weeks ago. She was Arthur Blackwood's daughter, and she had the power to fight back. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. Let's see what Gabriel Cross is really made of. Gabriel arrived at the mansion 15 minutes early, pacing the front steps like a caged animal. When Lily opened the door, the sight of her nearly brought him to his knees. She looked pale and fragile, with dark circles under her eyes that told him she'd been sleeping as poorly as he had. But there was something else in her expression, a steel resolve that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for coming," she said formally, leading him to Arthur's study. The room felt different now, charged with tension and unspoken accusations. Lily took a seat behind Arthur's massive desk, creating a physical barrier between them that felt symbolic of the emotional distance that had grown between them. "Lily, before you say anything, I need you to know that everything I told you about my feelings was true. Yes, I was hired to investigate you, but I fell in love with you. That was never part of the plan." "Whose plan, Gabriel? Who exactly hired you, and what were they paying you to do?" Gabriel took a deep breath, knowing this moment would determine everything. "Marcus Sterling and a man named Richardson. They claimed to represent distant relatives of Arthur Blackwood, who wanted to contest the will. They offered me $200,000 to find evidence that you had manipulated Arthur into leaving you his fortune." $200,000! Lily's voice was eerily calm. "That's more than I make in 5 years of teaching. I can see why it would be tempting." "It wasn't about the money. Well, it was at first, but then I met you, and everything changed." "Everything changed? But you kept taking their money, you kept lying to me, you kept searching for ways to destroy my claim." Gabriel moved closer to the desk, his hands gripping the edge. "Because I realized they weren't actually representing any legitimate claimants. They're executives from Arthur's company who want to split the assets among themselves. If they can prove you're a fraud, they can contest the will and divide the company." "And did you find any evidence that I'm a fraud?" "The opposite. Everything I found proved that you had no connection to Arthur before his death. You're completely innocent, Lily. You never knew him, never contacted him, never even knew he existed." Lily felt relief flood through her, followed immediately by a deeper hurt. "Then why didn't you tell them that? Why were you still working for them when I overheard that phone call?" Gabriel ran his hands through his hair, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "Because I realized they don't care about evidence. They want me to create evidence, to plant false documents, to fabricate a connection between you and Arthur. When I refused, they started making threats." "What kind of threats?" "Against you. They said if I couldn't discredit you legally, they'd find other ways to handle the problem, ways that might involve accidents." Lily's blood ran cold. "They threatened to kill me?" "Not in so many words, but yes. That's when I knew I had to choose. I could take their money and help them destroy you, or I could protect you and lose everything." Gabriel moved around the desk, his eyes intense and pleading. "Lily, I've been gathering evidence against them. I recorded our conversations, documented their attempts to bribe me to plant false evidence. I was going to bring it all to Whitmore and help you expose them." "You were going to help me? I love you. I would do anything to protect you, even if it means giving up the biggest payday of my career." Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. She wanted to believe him, but the recording device hidden in her jacket reminded her that this conversation had consequences beyond her personal feelings. "Gabriel, there's something else. Something about Arthur that changes everything." She pulled out the DNA results and handed them to him. Gabriel's face went white as he read. "Jesus Christ, he was your father?" "Yes, and that means this inheritance isn't some random gift from a stranger. It's my birthright. Arthur spent years looking for me, and he died just weeks before he planned to make contact." Gabriel sat down heavily, the full implications hitting him like a physical blow. "Lily, if Sterling and Richardson succeed in destroying your claim, they're not just stealing from some random heiress. They're stealing from Arthur's daughter. They're destroying a father's final gift to the child he never got to know. Will you help me stop them?" Gabriel looked up at her, and Lily saw her answer in his eyes before he spoke. "Tell me what you need me to do." "I need you to wear this wire and get them to confess on tape," Lily said, pulling out the recording device Whitmore had given her. Gabriel stared at the small device like it was a loaded gun. You want me to betray the people who hired me? I want you to expose criminals who are trying to steal my father's legacy. Lily, if I do this, there's no going back. Sterling has connections, resources. He could destroy my career, have me blacklisted from every investigation firm in the country. Hell, he could probably have me killed. And if you don't do it, they destroy me and everything Arthur worked for. His charitable foundations, his environmental initiatives, the jobs of thousands of employees, all of it gets carved up and sold for profit. Gabriel stood and walked to the window, staring out at the gardens Arthur had loved. The late afternoon sun cast everything in golden light, making the scene look like something from a painting. You know what the worst part is? I actually started to like you before I knew about the money. That first day in Whitmore's office, when you looked so confused and overwhelmed, I thought you were the most genuine person I'd ever met. Gabriel, I told myself I was protecting you by staying close, by gathering evidence slowly instead of planting false evidence like they wanted. But really, I was just protecting myself. I didn't want to lose you, but I also didn't want to give up the money. Lily moved behind him, her reflection joining his in the window glass. You haven't lost me. He turned to face her, and she saw tears in his eyes. How can you say that? I lied to you, manipulated you, made you fall in love with someone who doesn't exist. The man who just chose to help me expose criminals instead of taking their money, that man exists. The man who's willing to risk his career to protect Arthur's legacy, he exists too. The man who remembers that I told a child that purple skies are beautiful because they break the rules, that man is real. Gabriel cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize had started falling. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but you have it anyway, because I love you, Gabriel. Not the inheritance consultant, not the man Sterling hired, but you, the real you. When he kissed her, it was desperate and tender and full of all the words they hadn't said. Lily tasted salt and realized they were both crying, pouring months of pain and uncertainty and love into this one moment of connection. I love you, Gabriel whispered against her lips. I love you so much it scares me. I've never felt anything like this before. I love you too, which is why this has to work. We have to stop them, Gabriel, not just for the money, but for us. I can't build a life with you on a foundation of lies and stolen legacies. Gabriel pulled back to look at her, his blue eyes fierce with determination. What if something goes wrong? What if they suspect I'm recording them? Then we'll face whatever comes together. No more lies, no more secrets. Just us, fighting for what's right. Gabriel clipped the recording device inside his jacket, his hands steady now that he'd made his choice. Okay, let's take down the bad guys and get our happily ever after. Lily smiled through her tears, seeing glimpses of the man she'd fallen in love with, confident, protective, ready to fight for what mattered. Now you sound like the man I fell in love with. As Gabriel left to meet Sterling and Richardson, Lily watched from the window until his car disappeared around the bend. In a few hours, she would either have the evidence to secure her inheritance and expose the conspiracy, or she would lose both her fortune and the man she loved. But for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt like she was fighting back instead of just surviving. And she wasn't fighting alone. 6 months later, Lily stood in the art room of the newly opened Harper Foundation School, watching 20 children from underprivileged backgrounds discover the magic of finger painting. The recording Gabriel had made of Sterling and Richardson had not only secured her inheritance, but also led to their arrests for conspiracy and fraud. Miss Lily, look what I made. 8-year-old Marcus held up a painting that was mostly purple and blue swirls. It's beautiful, Marcus. What is it? It's my feelings when my mama hugs me. Lily's heart melted. This was exactly what Arthur would have wanted, his fortune creating moments of joy and discovery for children who needed it most. Gabriel appeared in the doorway, still in his suit from the courthouse where he testified in the final hearings against Sterling's associates. The conspiracy had been larger than they'd imagined, involving dozens of corporate executives who had planned to dismantle Arthur's empire piece by piece. How did it go? Lily asked as the children worked on their masterpieces. Richardson got 15 years. Sterling got 20. The judge said the scope of the fraud was unprecedented. Gabriel loosened his tie, looking relieved but exhausted. "It's finally over, Lily. All of it." Lily nodded, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring back the years Arthur had lost searching for her, or the meeting between father and daughter that would never happen. "Have you decided what to do with Arthur's personal papers?" Gabriel asked gently. Lily had inherited not just Arthur's wealth, but also boxes of documents chronicling his search for her, letters he'd written but never sent, birthday cards purchased for birthdays he'd missed, a father's love expressed in accumulated silence. "I want to create a memorial garden here at the school, somewhere families can come together and celebrate the connections they have instead of mourning the ones they've lost." Gabriel smiled, the kind of real smile that had made her fall in love with him in the first place. He would have loved that, and he would have been so proud of you. "I hope so. I hope I'm using his gift the way he would have wanted." Looking around at the children creating art with joy and abandon, Lily knew she was exactly where she belonged. She had inherited more than money. She had inherited purpose. That evening, Gabriel found Lily in Arthur's study, now her study, reading through more of her father's papers. She discovered that Arthur had been planning to fund art programs in schools across the country, a dream that she was now making reality. "Find anything interesting?" he asked, settling beside her on the couch where they'd shared their first real conversation. "A letter he wrote to me on my 25th birthday. Listen to this. My dearest daughter, today you turn 25. And I wonder if you're happy, if you're loved, if you know how extraordinary you are. I hope the people in your life see what I see, a young woman with a beautiful heart who makes the world brighter just by being in it. Someday, I hope to tell you this in person, but until then, know that you are loved beyond measure by a father you've never met." Gabriel pulled her closer as tears slipped down her cheeks. He was right, you know. You do make the world brighter. "I just wish I could have told him that he made my world brighter too, even without knowing it. All those anonymous donations to my school, the art supplies that would mysteriously appear when we needed them, that was him, wasn't it? According to the records, yes. He'd been watching over you for years, making sure you had what you needed to follow your dreams." Lily leaned into Gabriel's warmth, finally understanding that love could exist even without proximity, even without acknowledgement. Arthur had loved her from a distance, just as she had unknowingly been shaped by that love. "Gabriel? Do you think it's possible to love someone completely, even when you're built on lies at the beginning?" Gabriel was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "I think the best love grows from honesty, but sometimes it takes lies to teach us what truth really means. What we have now, this is real, this is honest, this is what love looks like when two people choose each other with their eyes wide open." Lily turned in his arms and kissed him, tasting the promise of all their tomorrows. Outside, the gardens Arthur had loved bloomed in the spring evening, and somewhere in the mansion, the grandfather clock chimed the hour, marking time the way it had for generations. But inside the study, time seemed suspended in perfect possibility. They had found each other through deception and discovered truth. They had inherited not just money, but love, purpose, and the chance to honor a father's dream. "I love you, Gabriel Cross," Lily whispered against his lips. "I love you too, Lily Blackwood," he replied, using the name she'd legally adopted to honor the father she'd never known but who had never stopped loving her. Some inheritances, they had learned, came with more than money. Some came with the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that love, once given, never truly dies. And sometimes the biggest fortune isn't what you inherit, but what you choose to do with it.
Your heart knows the way. Subscribe and follow the beauty.